And yeah, I had some messages like, what is going on? And what is going on indeed? I mean, the first thing I think about in this painting is, why have they got this lovely furniture in the middle of a field? But maybe that is the least of the questions that we should be asking ourselves. So this is a painting by the Netherlandish artist Hieronymus Bosch. He was from a place called Bosch in the Brabant, sort of south of the Netherlands. Purveyor of, if you know anything at all about art, you might well have heard of Hieronymus Bosch. Just weird paintings. People have tried to understand him for 500 or so years. So this is painted in 1494, or perhaps a little bit later, not entirely sure. And since that time, people have tried to unpick his works, and many of them have proved to be impenetrable. I'm going to try and unpick this one for you today, because it's worth unpicking, and I think I might have an answer. So what does it show us? So there is a guy actually in a surgeon's robe. So the guy's standing up with yes, he has got an upturned funnel on his head. He is supposed to be a surgeon, and he is taking a scalpel to this slightly portly gentleman's scalp, and seems to be pulling something out of it. In the meantime, there is a nun who is sitting looking rather dejected, and yes, she does have a book on her head. I don't know, maybe she's auditioning to go into Lucy Clayton. Is that the one? Lucy Clayton, the deportment college. I don't know. And then there's a monk who has, I think, is probably a flagon of wine or something. And all this is set in a circle, so it's as though we're sort of looking at it through something. And around the outside, it's black with this gold writing that essentially says, "Master, take the stone out quickly. My name is Lubert Das." Okay, so does that explain everything? It doesn't really explain much at all, does it? So this is actually a depiction of a procedure that was called trepanage or trepanning, and that was a real thing. So this is another description of trepanning, which, as you can see from these delightful illustrations, that these are from the 16th century. Sorry, I don't know whether you can hear that. The next door neighbours having their garden done, which is great. But so these are from the 16th century, and this shows a procedure that was actually carried out on some poor people, in which basically you got a hole bored into your skull, and this was to relieve all kinds of mental health problems, so madness or insanity. It was also meant to relieve pressure and headaches. Yeah. Oh, I think, maybe the thought behind it was that if you had this done, then you'd forget the headache that you had in the first place, because this is a whole lot worse, right? So this was a procedure, and this is the procedure that seems to be, that is being referenced in this painting. But that definitely cannot be the whole story, right? Would you have this procedure done by a guy with a funnel on his head? What's the nun doing, sitting around with a book on her head? It's all a little bit strange. So there's been a suggestion that actually this is perhaps, certainly it's a depiction of trepanning or trepanage, but perhaps it's a travelling theatre group, because this was something that was quite common. There would be theatre groups that travelled around, and when villages or towns had festival days, they would be employed to go and do their thing. And basically what they would do is they would sort of pretend to perform this operation, which was kind of rife for this sort of slightly satirical sort of play, because then as now to have rocks in your head, you know, so basically you were supposed to take a rock out of the person's head, and that was supposed to cure them of their madness or their folly, essentially. So to have rocks in your head then as now was to kind of be a little bit crazy, a little bit out of sorts, or a little bit sort of not thinking properly. And so this travelling theatre group, or travelling theatre groups, would go around and they would pretend to perform this operation to obviously too much drama and action. So, you know, the pretend surgeon would take his scalpel and flourish it, and he would have a bladder of pig's blood that would be spurted at the appropriate intervals, and the audience presumably would squeal, and then eventually some pebbles or little stones would be produced, and the person on whom the operation was being performed would be transformed in this little skit from being a little bit foolish and silly to being right in the head, shall we say, you know, or wise, or you know, he would be cured by all intents and purposes. That still doesn't quite get to the bottom. It's getting closer, but that still doesn't quite get to the bottom of funnelhead surgeon and dejected Lucy Clayton nun, does it? It gets a little bit, or I think the answer actually comes if you think about Dutch painting in the way that we have been thinking about Dutch painting. So if you remember, several weeks ago now we were talking about Rachel Roysch and flowers and tulips, and the meaning of tulip and tulip mania, and how very often, and also Vermeer, and how very often Dutch paintings aren't quite what they seem. They have meanings behind them. And I think this is probably the case here, and even more so because let's just see if you can see actually what this surgeon, so-called surgeon, is taking out of this gentleman's head, Lubert's head. He's taking out what looks like a flower, and in fact it is indeed a flower. It's a golden flower. There's also a golden flower on the table. So golden flower, stone, it's not a stone anymore, it's a golden flower. The golden flower was a symbol of wisdom, but also it was sort of the answer to everything, this golden flower. It was a symbol of the very elixir of life at this time, especially I think in the northern tradition. So essentially also what's going on in here is a little bit of alchemy. So the stones of the rocks in his head have been transformed by some kind of unknown process into a magic flower, a flower of wisdom, the elixir of life. So there's that, coupled with the fact that Lubert, and remember the inscription says, you know, Master, do this quickly, my name is Lubert Das. Lubert was a name that was associated with sort of foolishness and numpties, you know. I don't know whether they used it in the way like, oh, you Lubert, you know, or you numpty, you Wally, I suppose. My granddad was called Wally, and he can't have really liked it, but when I was a child, you Wally was like a sort of a gentle teasing name for somebody that was a little bit ooh. And so you've got this elixir of life, you've got this Lubert, and so I think that probably it is an allegory, actually. So Lubert, if you notice, is waiting to pay. He's got this big, this is his bag full of money at the side of the chair. So he's got all this money ready to give to this crazy surgeon once he's performed the operation. And basically what he's saying is that give me wisdom. So he's the stone has been turned into the flower of wisdom here. So this guy is pretending to be an alchemist, essentially. So this is sort of exposing him as a charlatan. And Lubert is saying, quickly, give me wisdom. I just, I want it now. I want to get this wisdom through a cranial operation, rather than putting in the work, putting in the time, putting in the effort that true wisdom takes, and I will pay you for it. So that the surgeon said that he can give it to him. Lubert is so foolish as to believe that he can receive it, and so essentially that, I think, is the crux of this image, and that then also explains why the nun is sitting with the book on her head, because obviously, but I think that she is thinking that she could kind of gain this wisdom through some kind of process of osmosis. And I kind of get that sometimes when I buy a book, or if I go into a library or a bookshop, I have this feeling that just from being there, I can sort of gain some kind of wisdom from all the books surrounding me. So I think that she's put this book on her head, and this is supposed to be this shortcut for learning that of course is never going to happen. And the irony is that she's sitting and she's looking dejected. But if she would only look down and just kind of look around her and engage with the world, she would see, with this golden flower in front of her, that all the wisdom that she needs is right there on the table. So I think this is Bosch basically having a pop at people who are deceitful, like the surgeon. Oh, the funnel on the head, by the way. This is a device that Bosch uses quite often. In fact, he uses it, I think, in the Garden of Earthly Delights and various other works. And so the funnel, this sort of goes a little bit back to the idea of the alchemist. So in the laboratory, so the funnel would be a very integral part to any kind of laboratory. One of the basic instruments. And so by turning it upside down, so the guy's turned it upside down, he's wearing it on his head, he's obviously using it incorrectly, and so this is, he is clearly no scientist, scholar, doctor, surgeon. He is at best a wannabe, and at worst a complete charlatan. So Bosch is not very happy with people that are deceitful, the surgeon, not very happy with people that are foolish and gullible, and he is especially not very happy with people that are lazy. And you might think that it's strange that he has included the clergy and this ensemble, but in fact it's quite interesting to know that Hieronymus Bosch was immensely religious. You wouldn't think it with all the crazy stuff that he came up with perhaps. But I think he was probably having a go at the religious orders and the clergy as well, and including them in this sort of damnation of vices, human vice. So there you go. I hope that has gone some way to explain the bonkersness of this picture on the surface about trepanage, potentially a depiction of a travelling theatrical show that all about trapanage and about turning somebody from a fool into a clever person, but actually allegorical and just talking about the foibles, the terrible foibles of mankind. I'm going to turn you back on and see what you thought of that. Let's turn on commenting, turn off pictures. So I hope it explains it. My goddaughter, actually, when I put that painting up, she said, "Oh my goodness, I'm studying that in history at the moment," and she said that it was all about trapanage. I said, "Oh yes, but is it?" So hopefully she'll watch this and be a little bit more confused or enlightened. Who knows? So yeah, you know how much I love it. Oh, this is, I think Holly is commenting on my sequins. I know how much Holly loves sequins. This is from before. Wow, I'm very enlightened by this. Oh, that's great. It's definitely bonkers. Caroline, I'm glad you're on. I was giving a shout out to your gorgeous locket. Your gorgeous locket. So I don't know whether you might have missed that. Yeah, it is definitely bonkers. Bosch, like I said, it's art critics throughout the centuries have been trying to understand Bosch, and I don't think anyone's really got to the bottom of him. But the closest that I've heard is that it was all about religion, actually, and that he was a sort of tub-thumping religious freak in many ways. Oh, watch again. Okay, really interesting. Surgeon looks like Tin Man. Yes, he does. He looks like the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz. Definitely, definitely. So have a wonderful week, everybody. Oh, Adrian, love Bosch. Was there any meaning to the shoes under the chair? No, I meant to talk about those though. I just think it's such a lovely little a little bit that all this craziness is going on, and let's just show you the shoes under the chair. Just he's tidied. They're in the middle of a field. He's having his head like drilled into, and he's got shoes under the chair neatly put together. It's a sort of a weird kind of domestic what's the word, sort of domestic reference in a bonkers painting. So what am I doing? So we've got another one about weird paintings on Thursday. I am also on Thursday evening zooming into Zeus again. So I've got a Zoom tour. It's £10, 6:15 on Thursday evening, looking at 4 paintings all about Greek mythology. Good fun. The last one was fun to do, and I will be also filming some more curated cocktails and canapes, so busy little bee. But have a great week, and I will catch up with you soon. Order amongst the chaos. Yes, the shoes under the chairs. Order amongst the chaos. Thanks everybody for joining. Bye.